Different approaches, right? Almost like personalities of prayer.
Yeah, the author calls them archetypes, and he lays out 6 main ones. It's kind of like getting to know a whole cast of characters who all pray but do it in very different ways.
And getting to know these archetypes, it can really open up how we understand prayer and how we experience it.
It's not just about labels, it's about getting a deeper understanding of what's going on beneath the surface.
Absolutely. And there's so much depth to uncover.
All right, so let's jump right in with the first one, the performer.
Okay, the performer.
The book starts off with this really vivid picture of Cantor Louis Danto at the Atlantic Beach Jewish Center. He's got this unbelievable tenor voice, really world class.
Wow.
And it describes this moment during the holidays after the Kiddush when he chants the Shehecheyanu. You know, that prayer of gratitude?
Right. For reaching this time.
Exactly. And the author focuses on how Danto repeats Lazman Haza, to this time. But the way he sings it with so much feeling, it's just incredibly powerful.
It really gets to you, huh?
It does. And I think it speaks to something essential about the performer's approach to prayer. Yeah. It's all about that beautiful recitation and chanting, especially from the Tanakh.
The Hebrew Bible.
Yeah. And the idea is to create this emotional and spiritual impact on the listener.
So it's about using your voice, the music, the rhythm, to make those words come alive.
Exactly.
I can see that.
And the book lays out 2 main ways this performer engages with the Bible. First, there's what they call comprehensive Bible use, which is essentially the straightforward reading of Scripture, like the weekly Torah portion, the prophetic readings, the Haftarah.
Right.
And then the annual cycle of the 5 Megillah on all the different holidays.
Oh, yeah, you get a whole different book for each one. Esther on Purim, Lamentations for Tisha B'Av, Song of Songs on Passover,
Ruth on Shavuot, Kohelet on Sukkot, and then Jonah on Yom Kippur.
That's a lot of reading throughout the year.
It is. It's not just some random selection either.
There's got to be a reason behind each one.
Oh, absolutely. Each book kind of reflects the overall theme of the holiday. So with Esther and Purim, it's all about hidden miracles and that kind of national salvation thing. And with Lamentations on Tisha B'Av, well, it's raw grief.
Heavy stuff. So there's this deeper meaning behind simply reading it.
Right. There's that extra layer.
Very cool.
Okay. Then there's a selective Bible mode. It's more like weaving together different threads. Biblical phrases and verses are woven into original prayers.
Like a tapestry.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So you're taking pieces from here and there and creating something new.
And the best example is the Musaf Amida for Rosh Hashanah. It's built around 3 sections: Melchiot, Zikronot, and Shofrat. Kingships, remembrances, and horn blasts.
Oh yeah, each section focuses on a major theme of Rosh Hashanah.
And get this, each section has 10 verses from the Bible.
Wow, 10 verses.
10 verses, yeah. And they're pulled from the Torah, the writings, and the prophets, all arranged in chronological order.
So you're essentially moving through time with those verses.
Past, present, future. It's really amazing how much thought went into structuring this prayer. And then, of course, you have the shofar blowing throughout the service.
Right.
Another layer of performance.
I see.
You know, the book even calls Rabbi Soloveitchik the Rav a master performer.
Interesting.
He was known for bringing this incredible freshness and immediacy to prayer and Torah study, even after years of studying the same texts.
Like he was always seeing them for the first time.
Exactly. Makes you wonder how he managed that.
Yeah, how do you keep that sense of wonder and discovery alive? Especially when it's something you do day after day, year after year.
That's the question, isn't it?
It is. Makes you think about your own life.
Okay. Let's move on to our next archetype. The mystic.
Okay, the mystic. Sounds intriguing.
This one feels so different from the performer.
In what way?
Well, think about the biblical figure of Hannah.
Right, Hannah.
The book credits her with being the originator of silent, personal prayer.
Silent prayer. That's a powerful image. Just you and God.
Exactly. And then the book jumps to a contemporary Hannah. She's described as praying at the Har El Synagogue in Jerusalem. And this is kind of cool. The author says this was the exact spot where he once experienced what he called perfect davening.
Wow. That's quite an endorsement for this mystical approach.
Right. So clearly there's something special going on there.
Definitely. So what makes the mystic's prayer so unique? It seems to be all about that one-on-one connection with the divine.
Absolutely. And the book mentions that the mystic is cool with the scribe archetype personalizing the text, but has issues with the priest controlling it.
Interesting.
Why do you think that tension exists?
Well, I guess for the mystic, it's all about that direct, unmediated connection with God. And the scribe's personalization kind of fits with that individual focus. But the priest's emphasis on ritual, on that communal structure, it could feel like a barrier, like something that's getting in the way of that pure experience.
That makes a lot of sense. And it reminds me of the Kaddish, that prayer for mourning.
Right.
It speaks to individual loss and that longing for connection beyond the physical world. Very much in line with that mystical impulse.
Yeah, it's deeply personal.
And then even in other more established prayers, you see those mystical elements popping up, like the Kedusha.
Oh, the prayer about the angels praising God.
Exactly. It takes you to this whole other realm, this sense of transcendence.
That's interesting. So while the performer uses their voice to bring those texts to life externally, the mystic is seeking that inner connection.
Yeah, it's more internal.
Like two sides of the same coin.
Okay, so archetype number 3 is the scribe. And this one really speaks to me.
Oh yeah. Why is that?
Well, it's all about using your intellect, diving deep into the sacred texts as part of your prayer.
So it's about study, contemplation, understanding.
Yes. And the author shares some stories about Rav Aharon Lichtenstein, this incredible scholar. He had this amazing ability to blend intellectual rigor with such deep spirituality.
Sounds like a pretty special guy.
Oh, he was. And the scribe approaches prayer almost like a form of textual study, demanding that intense focus and concentration.
Makes sense.
The Mishnah actually discusses whether you should interrupt someone reciting the Shema to say hello.
That's an interesting dilemma.
Right. And it's not just about manners. It really gets at the level of mental engagement required for this prayer. Like you're deep in thought.
Like a scholar poring over a text.
Exactly. And then there's the blessing Yozer Or, which comes right before the Shema in the morning. The book describes it as invoking the angelic model for prayer.
Angelic model.
Yeah. The idea is that the angels, being closest to God, would know better than anyone how to pray properly. So it's about using our knowledge and expertise to try and emulate that.
So we're learning from the angels. I like that.
Me too.
It's beautiful.
And the Passover Seder is a prime example of this scribal worship. It's a whole night dedicated to Torah study, using all those ancient methods of interpretation and discussion, really different from, say, the priestly rituals.
Right, a different vibe altogether.
And when you connect this to theology, it aligns with the Deuteronomist,
Emphasis on following God's law, right?
Exactly. It's about understanding the law, interpreting it, living it.
Makes sense.
And speaking of law, there's that striking image in the Rosh Hashanah prayers depicting God as the great judge, inscribing everyone's fate in a book.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah, it really drives home those themes of judgment, remembrance, and repentance. Like every action matters, but we also have the power to change.
Makes you think about your own choices.
It does, for sure.
So we've got the performer who emphasizes the beauty of the words, the mystic who seeks that direct connection, and the scribe who digs deep into the meaning. What's next?
Next up is the priest.
All right, the priest. I'm curious about this one.
This archetype is very much tied to the historical Jewish aristocracy, their role in the temple, all those specific responsibilities. Right. And there's this really powerful line from the Mishnah. It says that you shouldn't even interrupt the Amida for a serpent.
Whoa, not even for a serpent. That's serious dedication.
Right. It shows how deeply focused and disciplined the priest is supposed to be during prayer. Like nothing can break that concentration.
Whole commitment.
And it's interesting, the book talks about the Cohen haplotype.
Wait, the what?
The Cohen haplotype. It's a genetic marker that's linked to priestly lineage.
Pretty wild, right?
So you can actually trace that priestly ancestry back through DNA.
Yep. And it's just another layer of this archetype.
So the priest's core values revolve around the sanctity of the temple, the importance of ritual, maintaining order. They're big on the calendar, precise measurements, very structured.
Very much about rules and tradition.
Exactly. And the Amida is considered the ultimate priest's prayer.
Oh yeah, the Amida.
With its specific structure, and the Kedusha, that call and response with the angels.
Right.
It's interesting how even with those mystical elements, it still emphasizes that order and connection to tradition.
That makes sense.
And then the book introduces this concept of avatars of the priest.
Avatars.
Yeah, like other figures throughout Jewish history who embody those priestly values.
So like, whoa.
Well, the Maccabees, for example.
Oh, right. Fighting for religious freedom.
Exactly. Then there's Esther risking her life to save her people, and even certain figures in the Talmud.
So it's that same priestly energy, but showing up in different ways.
Exactly. And there's this really interesting story in the Talmud about a disagreement between Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, who was a priest, and Rabban Gamaliel.
What were they disagreeing about?
About the evening Amida.
The Amida again?
It really highlights how even in the rabbinic world, that priestly focus on the details of prayer rituals was still a big deal.
Intriguing.
Oh, and this one's really powerful. The historian Yehuda Bauer used the term Amida to describe those acts of unarmed resistance during the Holocaust.
Wow. I never thought about it that way.
It's like taking that act of standing in prayer and applying it to standing strong against unimaginable oppression.
Deep.
Really deep. And it speaks to that strength and leadership the priest embodies.
Yeah. Like leading the community through the darkest of times.
And the author even shares a story about his own father, Rabbi Tzvee Zahavy, leading services in that priestly mode. Really brings it home.
Makes it personal. I like that.
All right, on to our next archetype. And this one is the meditator.
Okay, the meditator. That sounds pretty different from the priest.
It is. The book tells the story of Deborah, who got really into mindfulness meditation. And she started noticing all these parallels between mindfulness and the traditional Jewish blessings.
The bureau coat.
Exactly. And the rabbis actually referred to this meditative aspect of prayer as the service of the heart. So it's not like a new idea.
Right.
And Deborah started using these blessings, the ones for fragrant fruit, for different kinds of food, as cues for these mini meditations.
So like taking a moment to really be present with what you're experiencing.
Yeah, bringing that mindfulness into those everyday moments.
Yeah.
It's a way to connect the physical and spiritual.
That's a really beautiful way to look at it.
And then the Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals.
Right.
She saw it as an expression of loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity.
All those core principles of mindfulness.
Exactly. It's like these ancient prayers were already full of meditative wisdom.
Just waiting to be unlocked.
Exactly. And she started using those blessings as meditative triggers throughout the day, like a way to bring herself back to that state of mindfulness.
I see. So it's about actively using those prayers as tools.
Right. And it's cool to compare the meditator's kivun to the scribe's kavaina and the priest's kavana.
Wait, hold on. Different kinds of kavana.
Yeah. The meditators is more about their overall focus, their direction. The scribes is about that intellectual concentration on the meaning. And the priests is about self-control and intention during the ritual.
So it's all intention, but it manifests in these really different ways.
Exactly. Okay. Ready for our final archetype.
Hit me with it. Who's our last one?
The celebrity.
Celebrity. Okay, that's a curveball. I wouldn't have expected that one.
Right. It's a little unexpected. And this one starts with the author running into Rabbi Meir Kahan on a plane.
Rabbi Kahan. Controversial figure, to say the least.
To say the least. And it's important to remember his background. He was ultra-nationalist, held some pretty extreme views.
So how does that tie into this celebrity archetype?
Well, the book uses celebrity to describe someone with a big public presence and a very clear, often forceful vision for the future of the Jewish people.
Okay, I can see that.
And the prayer that's highlighted for this archetype is the Aleinu.
The Aleinu.
Yeah. It declares God as the one true king and talks about a future when everyone will recognize that truth. It can be pretty powerful.
Definitely. And it has that assertive tone, almost triumphant.
Right. And for the celebrity, the Messianic age often involves the victory of the Jewish people over other nations.
Very different from the scribe or the meditator.
Yeah, a lot more politically charged. But then the book brings up Beruria.
Beruria.
She's described as a kind of hybrid celebrity monotheist, but with a more peaceful, universalistic view of the future.
More in line with Isaiah, maybe?
Yeah, that's the idea. And it shows how these archetypes aren't always so clear-cut.
Right. There can be overlap, different combinations.
Definitely. And those messianic themes pop up in other prayers too, like the Kedusha for Shabbat and the Musaf Amida for Rosh Hashanah.
So it's this longing for a better world, but interpreted in different ways.
Exactly. And then there's the martyr's prayer, Ila Ezra, recited on Yom Kippur. And the book talks about how martyrs sometimes chose the Shema or even the Aleinu as their final words.
Wow. Powerful stuff.
It really connects those core declarations of faith to those moments of ultimate sacrifice.
Really makes you think.
It does. And then the book ends with this really interesting discussion about the Kaddish of the martyrology. It was created after the Holocaust.
Oh, I've heard of that.
It tries to blend elements of the mystic's prayer with the celebrity's focus on national tragedy. but it ended up being left out of some prayer books. I think it shows how hard it is to grapple with those kinds of events through prayer.
Yeah. How do you find the words?
It's a tough question.
It is.
So there you have it. 6 different archetypes. The performer, the mystic, the scribe, the priest, the meditator, and the celebrity. Each one offering a unique perspective on Jewish prayer.
It really opens up a whole new way of understanding this ancient practice.
It does, and it makes you realize just how diverse it really is, not just the words themselves, but the way we approach them, the intention behind them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And hopefully this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
Definitely. So as you go about your day, your week, think about these archetypes. Which one resonates most with you? How does it shape your own understanding of prayer? And what new insights can you gain by recognizing these different voices within our tradition? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely. Let us know.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.
Shalom.